right, good evening, ladies, as a few gentlemen that are in the room. My name is Leslie Stein. I am the host of the Wake Up Show on Up 97.7. I'm going to be your MC tonight and your moderator for the panel as well. I hope you all enjoyed the social portion of tonight's agenda, and I now have the distinct pleasure of welcoming you to the last fall, it doesn't feel like fall, but it is, event in Calgary for the Young Women of Influence evening series. I'm going to start off by thanking this evening's sponsors who have made the series possible with their continued support in this initiative and for their presence here tonight. Scotiabank, which is the title sponsor, Anne Klein, Queen School of Business, and there's details about their upcoming free webinars in your gift bags too, so check that out. Shoppers Drug Mart, The National Post, Kids and Company, 20 Bees Wine, delicious wine, City TV, and of course Up 97.7. And some of our sponsors have actually provided some amazing door prizes tonight. Those are from Scotiabank, a 2 Cineplex movie gift bag filled with goodies and Cineplex passes. Queen School of Business has supplied a stylish bag filled with business accessories, a swag bag from National Post, a beauty basket filled with gorgeous beauty products, that's from Shoppers Drug Mart, and Anne Klein has provided a swag bag as well. If you haven't had a chance to fill out the ballot, it looks like this, and it's in your gift bag. Don't worry, some ladies from the Women of Influence will be coming around to collect those if you didn't get it in the bucket. And also, very exciting, Women of Influence is giving away a complimentary annual subscription to the magazine to help each of you advance on the path to success. It looks like this. It's also in your gift bag. And I've been told, very exciting, just in time for Christmas, you can register a friend too. So if you have a special lady in your life, early Christmas present, get that checked off your list. And the Women of Influence staff will be coming around to collect those too if you haven't yet handed those in. Okay, so I'm going to let you know how the evening is going to work. We're going to start with the panel of our 3 panelists. Leslie Scourgy, best-selling author, columnist, and business analyst with Encana. Melissa Gunning is a founder of Lean Green and co-founder of 10,000 Kids Project. And finally, Nancy Foster, who's the Senior Vice President of Human and Corporate Resources with Husky Energy. And I've had the chance to speak to these ladies over the last few weeks, and these few things I just mentioned are like an 8th of what they do. They're very, very busy. And after the presentation, there's going to be about a 15-minute question and answer period, and then we're going to move into the connecting activity, and it's designed to help you build relationships and meet some of the amazing women in this room tonight. And then we'll move on to the door prizes. And again, if you are tweeting, it's #YoungWOI. Okay, so when it comes to work-life balance, that is the subject for today, how many women in the room feel like they've got it all figured out? They can balance their work, their social life, their kids? I haven't got a clue. So as young and emerging leaders, we've got to take control of our work and professional lives and not let them take control of us. It happens so often, and especially as women, we think we can do everything and we take everything on. So we've called in the professionals. They're very diverse, they're all very, very different, and they're amazing. And they're gonna kind of help us work through this and discuss how they do it. First of all, I'd like to welcome out Delaney James. She's the manager of personal banking with Scotiabank, and she's going to introduce our 3 panelists tonight.
Thanks, Leslie. Good evening, everyone. I'm Delaney James, and I'm manager of personal banking at Scotiabank, and I'm delighted to join you this evening and welcome you to tonight's Young Women of Influence session. Scotiabank is a proud sponsor of the Young Women of Influence series. Our partnership with Young Women of Influence comes from a shared commitment to the advancement of women in the workplace. For Scotiabank, that means being a leader in the advancement of women in all countries in which we operate. We support women in their careers, and we encourage opportunities for our employees with the goal to enable them to reach their full potential. I'm pleased to introduce our panel for the evening, Leslie Scourgy, Melissa Gunning, and Nancy Foster. Our moderator tonight is Leslie Stein. So I'll start with Leslie. Leslie Scourgy is the best-selling author of Rich by 30, a young adult's guide to financial success. Her latest book, Rich by 40, a young couple's guide to building net worth, released in spring 2010, focuses on giving young couples the skills to build their bottom line. Leslie owns and operates Rich by Inc., a financial consulting company dedicated to providing education, resources, and tools to a variety of demographics. Leslie is passionate about financial literacy and has promoted this through speaking and writing since 2001. A 2011 winner of Avenue's Top 40 Under 40 Award, Leslie holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Alberta and an MBA from Queen's University, as well as a professional speaking designation through the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. She also works as an analyst for a natural gas company and focuses on developing new clean markets for natural gas in power generation and transportation. Leslie dedicates substantial time, energy, and resources to non-profit organizations within her community. She's currently the treasurer of the National YWCA of Canada and is a member on the President's Think Tank Committee for the University of Alberta. Please join me in welcoming Leslie Scotiabank. Next on our panel is Melissa Gunning, founder of Mean Green. In just over a year, the stay-at-home mom has created a company that manufactures and distributes environmentally and body-friendly food storage containers to more than 200 stores worldwide. Outside of running Mean Green, Melissa has co-founded the 10,000 Kids Project, which helps improve the lives of local children in areas such as literacy, food, and shelter. So far, the 10,000 Kids Project has raised $170,000 to support Brown Bagging It, a program that provides bagged lunches to kids in need. Please join me in welcoming Melissa Gunning. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Nancy Foster, Senior Vice President, Human and Corporate Resources at Husky Energy. Appointed as Vice President, Human and Corporate Resources in 2011, Nancy is an experienced human resources practitioner with extensive oil and gas experience domestically and internationally. Before joining Husky, Nancy was Country Manager Norway for Nexen Inc., responsible for the direction, management, and corporate strategy of Nexen's Norwegian operations. In 2012, she was appointed Senior Vice President. Prior to that, she was Senior Vice President, Human Resources and Corporate Services at Nexen, responsible for strategic oversight and operation of all human resources functions for a global employee base of 4,000 people. She also provided oversight of the supply management and corporate administration functions. She worked for Husky from 1984 to 1993, becoming Manager, Corporate Planning and Economics. Nancy holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from McMaster University and is a graduate of the Harvard Advanced Management Program. She served on a number of industry-related committees, including the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and the Conference Board of Canada. Nancy's worked on a number of charitable committees, including the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation, Child 7 Youth Friendly Calgary, Hospice Calgary, and the United Way of Calgary and area. Please join me in welcoming Nancy Foster.
Thank you, Delaney, for that excellent intro. We learned a little bit more about you guys, but we want to learn a little bit more even. So we'll start with Leslie, and maybe give us a snapshot kind of your day, of your week, the things that you have to fit into your life or balance into your life.
Okay, perfect. First, thank you very much for having me, and thanks to everybody for coming out in such terrible weather. So a snapshot of my week is quite jam-packed. I do have 2 best-selling books, Rich by 30, Rich by 40, right here. They keep me quite busy promoting financial literacy, which is a subject that I'm very passionate about. And because of that passion, it takes me into schools or corporate offices, doing lunch and learns or presentations with employees, or even parents, grandparents, children, you name it. On top of that, I have a column that I write every week with Metro News. That's that free paper that you pick up at the LRT stands or at the bus stops. And that column is called Fun and Frugal, so I often prepare for that. And you'll get to know that I'm quite a very frugal young lady throughout this presentation, I'm sure. On top of those commitments, the other passion that I have is to improve our North American energy portfolio, and that inspires the work that I do within Canada. And I have a very wonderful opportunity to work on projects that do promote sustainable energy development through the use of cleaner fuels and also renewables. On top of that, I do have volunteer commitments. and I am the treasurer for the YWCA of Canada, and what that entails is my activities looking over the finances of the organization, and YWCA across the world is dedicated to promoting young women and women in general in terms of their health and education and wellness and helping to stop domestic violence. I also sit on a committee with the University of Alberta, which is a think tank where we look at how Alberta's education is going to be shaped in the future, and that is another time commitment. I recently completed my MBA, which took up another chunk of time, but I'm very happy that that's over with, and now in very recent months, I've been able to transition much of my time back toward my personal life.
Which is, if you don't mind sharing, you have a significant other, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And no kids?
No children.
Okay, maybe we'll move on to Nancy. Give us a snapshot of what your week looks like.
Well, my role at Husky is quite demanding, but I have a tremendous team of people, some of whom are here today. One of my goals is to work with the younger generation within our company. We started a mentoring program. So this is something that I dedicate a lot of time to, is moving these programs forward, something that Husky in previous years hadn't really put a lot of time and energy to, but we're a company that's growing. We've got tons of opportunity and exciting challenges, and we need a workforce that is inspired and wants to be part of our growth. That includes what I think is an untapped resource of young women. So we've also started a women's network at Husky, and I know lots of companies have been doing this for years, but it's not something that had been put a lot of time and effort into, and I have a great team who's very engaged in this and sees the benefit of it. And so for me, it's at my age, I feel like I'm Barbara Walters on The View. For me at my age, it's about giving back, because I was very lucky to have a mentor in my first few years in the business. I've been in oil and gas for 31 years, and any of you who are in oil and gas, and you know that we still haven't come as far as we need to in terms of having a diverse workforce, including gender diversity. So it's something that I'm really focusing on, and it's beyond just women. We're looking at all employee resource groups. We've joined Panelists in looking at ways to really just build on what other companies have done and move Husky forward and make us an employer of choice. I believe that we've come a long way. I do sit on the YWCA right now. When I went to Norway for 4 years, unfortunately I had to resign from my charitable boards, and I'm just working back into getting into the community. My children are grown. I have 4 kids. 2 of them are here tonight. I have a son who's 29, another one who's 28. My daughter, Kate, is 26, who's here, and Samantha is just about 25. So I don't have that to deal with anymore, but except when the fridge breaks down, whatever that goes with. But I am going to have a grandson in January, which I'm very much looking forward to. So honestly, when I look back to what I do during my week, I wonder why I'm so busy. I don't have 4 kids anymore, but I have found now that I can devote time to things like promoting women in the workforce and paying it back for the opportunities that were provided for me.
Thank you. And finally, our busy mommy over there.
I'm Melissa. I own Lean Green. I started the company about I think about 3 years ago, I actually have 2 kids. My oldest daughter is 10, my youngest daughter is 4, and I went on maternity leave from being an elementary school teacher. Not great at public speaking in front of adults. If you were all children, I promise I would be better, but I'm getting there. And so when I went on maternity leave with my youngest, I ended up not going back to teaching, and I started this business. So now my week has gone from just getting up, getting the kids ready and walking out the door, working 8 hours and then coming home, to getting up, getting the kids out the door, and then having a nanny phone in sick, and end up with a 4-year-old that is screaming all day. Today actually might have been a good example. I was speaking to a very important buyer, Williams-Sonoma. I was speaking to their buyer today. We're in their stores, they're great to deal with. And my youngest daughter was in the washroom, and as I'm on speaker speaking to them, she's like, "I pooped, you need to come on to my mom." Can I go, you're bad? So that's kind of the base of the day, and I deal with a lot of companies overseas as well. So, you know, we've got that during the day, the background noise I call it, and then at night I get to talk on the phone to my lovely friends overseas. In Korea is where we manufacture. So I do that, and I also have the, I don't know the right way to say it, I travel a lot. I travel about once a week, I would say every month, to different places without my kids, sometimes with them. With them, you can imagine, is a lot crazier than without. I'm trying to think of what else goes on in a day. It's the same drill every morning. It's get up, hurry, 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 which I never understand, because even if we got up 20 minutes earlier, it's still always go, 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 which floors me. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
With all of our lives, whether you know we're doing what you guys are doing or whatever it is significant or insignificant as you feel it is, it's all about finding balance in your life. And maybe we'll start again back here with Leslie. What does balance look like to you, and what are some things you do to ensure you have balance and that you don't essentially lose your mind with everything that you're doing?
I think that we could spend a lot of years and decades trying to find that perfect balance, and in my opinion, I don't know that a perfect balance truly exists. In my view, I like to think of balance as a very long-term game, and there's times in your life where you have more balance, then you have less balance, but ultimately I believe that I think that we can strive to achieve balance in the long term. And what I'm really referring to is this constant tension between am I doing too much or am I doing too little? And also as women, we often beat ourselves up for not achieving this I guess, place of balance that society maybe imposes on us. In my world, balance truly is about trying to make sure that there's time for me and time for my relationships, and that sometimes means setting aside actual calendar appointments in my Outlook. Those are busy weeks for sure. I also try to be very efficient with my days so that when I arrive at a time where I set that aside for balance or for personal time, I can really hone in and focus on that time. For me, I find that I can achieve better balance when I am present in every moment. So that means being present in my work, when I'm working, being present when I am talking to my friends, or even just enjoying a meal with my partner. All of those moments, if I find that I can be present in those, I find that I have a lot better balance. But ultimately, for myself, I think, practically speaking, balance also includes, healthy mind, healthy body, and having dreams. And for those of you in the room that have them, I'm hoping everybody does, this is what gives us hope, and I do believe that it's what pushes you toward achieving some type of personal balance that is self-defined.
Thank you. Nancy, I kind of want to pose the same question to you, but I mean, you call yourself Barbara Walters. I call you experienced. You're our most experienced member on the panel, and you said you've raised 4 children, and you've had this amazing career. So kind of the same thing, but flat out, can we have it all? Because I feel like you're sitting there and you've had it all and you've done it well. So can we? Have you made bigger sacrifices? Has anything suffered?
Well, maybe this one just doesn't hold up. I was thinking it was her. You have to make choices. So definitely there were times where I felt like, I wasn't being the type of mom that I wanted to be, but I did look at it from a broader perspective. I knew that for my own happiness, it was important for me to work outside the home. You have to make those decisions about yourself. There's all kinds of people who love to give you advice over a dinner or in an elevator about what you should or shouldn't be doing. That has to be about you. And I knew this about myself. And so when I was first into the workforce, what I noted was that the vice presidents actually were very flexible. They didn't really care about how much time you spent at the office. What they cared about was results. It was about performance versus hours spent, and it was the manager level, the ones that I was reporting to, the supervisor, and then the manager, then the vice president. So my goal was to become a manager as quickly as possible so that I could at least have some level of flexibility. As long as I met my goals, delivered on results, that I could make some choices about being there for my kids. There were many times I wasn't, but I had to make that decision about, did I have to go to every single soccer game? Or was it important that I went to the important ones? Be there for the important events. I also planned out a lot of things. I would go out and go home and say to my husband, look, I delivered board documents. I worked in corporate planning for 10 years. And it was very important certain times of the year, budget planning. And then in HR with compensation committees, there was just certain times it wasn't going to be possible for me to go on some vacation or do it, be there at certain events. And so I planned around those. And then, as Leslie said, when I was home, I was home. And even if I walked in the house at 8 o'clock at night, I left my job at the door and spent the time with the kids. And so can you have it all? I think you can be happy. And I think you have to be happy with the choices that you make and not worry about what other people think the right answer was. I had people say to me, I can't believe you let a nanny raise your children. Okay, well, thank you for your feedback, but you have to be you have to decide that this is what you want, and just give yourself a break and look at the quality time that you're spending. I've told this story before. My dad went back and he had quit school when he was in grade 11. He went back to school, got his high school degree, went and did his university degree, and graduated when he was 40, and he had 6 kids. He worked at night, went to school during the day. I was very close with my father. It wasn't about the quantity of time, it was about the quality.
Thank you. And Melissa, you're kind of living that right now. You've got little ones. So the same thing, how do you find that balance of raising children and running companies? And is mommy guilt a real thing?
Number one, I make up balance. I define it every day. Balance has a different definition in my house. My house is a mess, by the way, just so everybody here knows that my house is disgusting. If you're coming over, I'll clean it out. But the balance to me, honestly, it is. It's day by day. It's how to get through each and every day. I don't know. If I'm feeling burnt out, those are the days that I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop today. I'm not going to go back to work at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock after the kids are in bed. I'm going to watch Grey's Anatomy, which is a great series. I don't have cable, but I will watch TV online. So that's how I cheat. But with the kids, with the mommy guilt thing, I think mommy guilt should be completely outlawed. I have no mommy guilt, none, zero. And I travel a lot, I'm away from them a lot, but I work from home. I work in my basement, wiping butts, like I do all of that when I'm there. I remember I was traveling overseas a couple months ago, and I got in my car, and it was late and I was exhausted, but I started to cry because I just said goodbye to both the girls, and they had woken up when I was leaving, so it was even worse because it was like 11 o'clock at night, and they're bawling. So I sat in the car and I started to cry, and I was thinking, why am I upset? Like, these kids, these two little girls who are watching their mom get on an airplane, fly overseas, and walk into a business meeting with 30 men. Like, this is empowering. And so that's what I think of. That's how I eliminate the mommy guilt thing, is I just think no one else can teach my girls to be this empowered. The only person that can is me. So that's why I think mommy guilt is wrong. Should we have
Leslie, what are some lessons that you've learned in your experience in trying to balance everything you balance that you could share with us?
When I guess in the earlier part of my career, I started my career at the age of 17 when I kind of got my first break, and I met Oprah Winfrey and was on the program, and I came back to Calgary, and I had all sorts of opportunities that came out of that experience. And I experienced something I'd never before had an opportunity to I guess experience, and that was having your time taken from you. And I made the mistake in the very first few years of my career saying yes to everything because I was getting started, and I needed to say yes to that speaking engagement so that I could tick it off and say I had that experience. I said yes to writing opportunities. I said yes to media opportunities. And what ended up happening is my time evaporated because I didn't use any filters to determine what was worth my time and what wasn't worth my time. All the while, I had things that I really needed to say yes to, which was my education. So I was going to university and trying to get myself through that with good grades and get my long-term career on the go. And so the very first few years of my career was tough because I didn't know how to prioritize. And it took me probably 3 or 4 years to truly understand the impact of that lack of skill set. And it showed up in ways that I think are quite unfortunate, whereby I wasn't able to see my friends, I wasn't able to see my family. I was flying from place to place. I remember one of my craziest weeks when my first book came out, Rich by 30. I was in 5 different cities in 1 week, and I was exhausted. I had the flu, but I just kept on going, and I had no real good filters. So my big lesson early on was trying to determine how to prioritize my time. And then the second lesson was in order to prioritize properly, you have to learn to value your time. And it's really hard when you're young and you don't know exactly what that means, and that your time is valuable, and that where you spent it will come out of some pocket of your time wheel. And when I say time wheel, I don't know if anyone's ever taken a circle and split it up with the amount of time that you have in a week and where it all goes. So how many hours you sleep and how many hours you spend exercising or going to work. But there's only so many hours in a week, and your time wheel only shifts, right? It doesn't get bigger, but I didn't know that early on, so I kept shifting it and cutting out of things like my sleep or like my personal life. So my big lessons were to determine that my time was valuable and that I only had a certain amount. And I'm a visual person, so the time wheel really helped me to see that those aspects of my life were valuable, and I would need to protect them, and to be more fiercely protective of that time once I knew how valuable it was. And then I learned how to prioritize.
Perfect. And Nancy, the same question, some lessons that you've learned in your experiences.
Well, it is about choices. So when I was Leslie's age, I had 4 children. So I did not come to events like this. And so, you know, that's something that I feel like I missed out on. But, you know, I only had so much time in the day. And like most women, you work through lunch to meet your deadline so that you can go to the kids' volleyball game or soccer game. And I wasn't able to do these things, so I attended business dinners for the company that had to, but I kept those external things at a minimum. Now I do a lot more, and it is about where you are in your cycle, and because you have to say how much can I possibly do and how much benefit is to me, and I look back on it and I say, you know, were there things that I would have done differently? Maybe a few things. My kids gave me a performance appraisal once. And yeah, they said they didn't like that I showed up at their soccer games in suits. No other mothers did that. And I didn't do baking. So so I figured if that was my performance feedback, that was pretty good. And so I'm like Melissa, I don't have a lot of guilt about those things. And quite frankly, when I look back at how fast the time flew, it was because there was just so much in every given day, and you do have to say, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'd rather go see my kids play soccer, so I may miss out on this, but how important was it? And there will be times when you just don't have that choice, but you also have to say, is it realistic that I'm going to go to every single one of my kids' soccer games? No, it's not. Will they be, you know, psychologically scarred by it? I don't know. They're here. They can tell you.
Kind of the same thing, lessons that you've learned along the way, and maybe that you're still learning.
Yeah, I agree with everything that these ladies have said, but something that I have learned more, I think, lately than ever before is surrounding yourself with people that not only support you, but understand your goals, right? I'm having a hard time articulating this for whatever reason. My husband is one person. I can't imagine at the end of a day, you know, instead, I say to him, I'm not cleaning the kitchen tonight. I'm going to bed. Don't bother it. And he'll clean it. I don't know, it's just little things like that. It's great. But even at work, like we've got an amazing support staff at work as well, and it's all coming together. A stronger team, personally and professionally, I think is going to get you farther everywhere in success, in balance, in happiness. It's not all you, it's who you surround yourself with, and friendships, right? Friendships are really important to have as well. So finding that time. I love the circle and splitting it. I think that's fantastic, and I need to make more time for my friends.
We'll ask you where you met your husband later. But Leslie, kind of the same thing. I know you mentioned that you have a very supportive mother, so do you kind of feel the same way about certain people in your life that have always kind of been there to support you and your goals?
I can't say how important that is. I've been very blessed to have a support network that has been there even when I was flying to 5 cities in 1 week, and they never ever said that they weren't going to support me. And the support that I got from my friends and my family during especially the early part of my career was what helped shape my passion, and my clarity for my goals became more sharp because I had support right in my soul, knowing that these people were wanting me to pursue my passion and that my dreams and my happiness were going to be important to them. I think today I have a very, very supportive group of friends and family that have kind of expanded, because as you grow, you have a partner, and then you have extended families, and it just becomes bigger and more, I think, more loving and supportive. So you can achieve, I think, a lot of wonderful things when you have people that are rooting for you, especially when you have tough days or maybe a disappointment. But at the end of the day, it's all about that balance. And if we don't nurture those supportive relationships, and if we don't give back, that flower wilts a little bit. So the other consideration that I have always on my plate is that balance. So how am I going to give to the people that give me way more than I could possibly give to them? How am I going to fit that in? And that just has to be a priority.
Nancy, kind of the same thing, but maybe elaborate a little bit more on what Leslie said. I know most of us have been in that situation where there is that friend or that person in our life that it just always seems like, oh, they ask you for a lunch or a coffee and you're just too busy, and there's always seems to be those people that you kind of feel like you're leaving out. How do you nurture relationships?
I think that if they're your good friend, they're going to understand. Families. Certainly, I would have to say that in my younger years, I didn't cultivate a lot of relationships. There was a few, and I treasured those, and just because there wasn't enough time. And what I always did was make time for when a friend, a colleague, and usually my friends were my colleagues. I developed the relationships at work. I spent so much time at work, it actually made sense that that's how it would develop. And so if they were having a tough day, go over and have a coffee, let them vent, and they felt safe with that, and I felt safe with them. And I think that was, so there was a few, but they were very valued. And my husband got a lot of venting from me. And it kept me from sending emails or saying things that I probably shouldn't. Those that know me, they know I'm very direct. And now I'm finding that I'm able to keep in touch with more people, develop more, give more of a helping hand, and be there for the younger generation when they're looking for just someone to talk to, some counseling, some, how should I deal with this? And I do make time for that because people made time for me, and it made a huge difference in my career and my ability to deal with all the challenges of working full-time outside the home. I mean, for my last one, I had 2 months off in maternity leave. That was tough, and that was what was just expected all those years ago as you rose up through the ranks. And I did have a lot of support from that small group of friends and family, thankfully.
Melissa, I have to ask you, because you're in the middle of raising kids, husband, businesses. You mentioned that you watch TV on the computer, but do you ever have, I know for me, and I don't have children myself, and I don't have nearly as much going on as you do, but it's still so important to have moments alone, to have those kind of moments where you just get to breathe. Do you get those? And how important is it that you make time for those moments?
It works. Sometimes I sleep. It's quiet. My husband sleeps downstairs because my 4-year-old still comes into my room at night. So those are quiet. Honestly, I don't take enough time for myself, and I know that. It's funny, I was writing a blog post for somebody on this subject, and people are like, why do you like airplanes so much? That's my quiet time, because nobody talks to me. I can order wine. You can't do that in your kitchen. You can't be like, bring me some wine. So you get to sit there, you order wine, and watch a movie. So that's when I get my quiet time, that's it. That's
Leslie, I'm going to ask you this question. How important is it to have a family of your own, and when do you decide, how do you know when the right time is? And do you feel those pressures from society? You've accomplished all this, well, when are you going to get married and have babies? I'm sure you get that question a lot.
I get it all the time. Maybe for background, I'm newly 29, and I have spent the past decade building my career and focusing on improving my education. I pursued my MBA last year through Queen's, And prior to that, I was working on my BCom and developing my actual career through my books, and then also in the energy industry. And that was the right thing for me to do at that time. I have been very focused. It felt good. It felt like the right thing. And in the past year or so, I made a vow to myself that I would begin to shift toward greater balance in my personal life to make room for family and for an actual marriage. My mom will be so happy. But it is important to me to have family someday, and hopefully that day won't be too far away. That's a value that I've had for many years. And all I can say is that the time now is right for that transition. But a few years ago, it didn't feel like the right time to make that, that shift. And all I can say is that when it comes to this subject, it's such a personal one, and it's really important to follow your heart and follow what's right for you, because everybody and their dog has an opinion on where you should be in your personal life and where you should be in your career, and they don't matter. It's what's right for you, and it's about finding that that balance and that shift when the time is right.
Okay, we're gonna start wrapping up now before we head into the question and answers. I'm just gonna give each of you just a chance to share one last piece, the biggest piece of advice you could give us when it comes to work-life balance. We'll start with Nancy.
Wow. I think just going back to what I said is that if you need to be happy with the choices that you make, because for most families, it still is that the woman's the primary caregiver. And so you have a lot of influence on your children, on how they react to things and how they view the world. And no matter what your choice is, if they see you as passionate about what you're doing and happy with your choices, then I have to say that in itself is a balance, because you're never going to be able to do everything. I don't think it exists in this world, even if you unless you're independently wealthy, I guess, and you don't need to worry about meeting deadlines and all that. But I would have to just go back to that. Do what's right for you, and you don't always know it at the time. But once you do, stick with it, and don't worry about what other people think.
Thank you, Melissa.
She said. I think, going off of that for sure, but advice for me in this situation that I'm in right now is to try and plan ahead as much as absolutely possible. So something that I'm well known for in my family is Sundays are planning days. So I look at the calendar and we go through absolutely everything on the calendar, and we actually try and take things out. That's our goal on Sundays, to try and remove something from the calendar so that we have a little bit more time together. I cook on Sundays. I try and at least plan the meal or get it together, I guess. Doesn't always happen, very rarely actually. I like to think that I do that, but I don't. I've got a good system now. Yeah, just really prepare yourself for right before it gets started. So if you're looking at just making a career change or going into a new career or something like that, I would do as much planning before you go into it as you possibly can. So just planning.
Perfect. And finally, Leslie.
I can echo those two fantastic pieces of advice, and now I have to cook up a third. At the end of the day, balance is something that you're going to define yourself. And I would encourage everybody not to allow anybody else to weigh in on your time wheel. It's your wheel, you own that time. So, you know, manage it carefully, plan carefully, and I would also say that your personal relationships at the end of the day are going to be the only things that you have left. So if you could pick one piece of your wheel to always make sure is top of mind, I would suggest that that would be it.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Yes. I've got one for Leslie. Can you talk a little bit about your adolescence and not necessarily the environment that you grew up in that enabled you to be a leader, but how was this passion uncovered? What drove you to write a book at such a young age? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I grew up in a very frugal home, and that was simply due to the fact that both of my parents were pursuing their education while we were young kids. And for almost a decade, our entire family lived very close to what they now call the low-income line, or the poverty line is what it used to be called. And growing up in that environment inspired all of us out of necessity to become quite frugal. And in those early years, my mom in particular had money conversations with us, and she was the one who at age 10, when I had $100 that it was given to me for my birthday, she was the one that sat me down and said, okay honey, if you invest in this Canada savings bond, it'll be worth $135 in about 7 years from now. And that's compound interest. I wanted a bicycle, but I allowed her to convince me to buy this bond. And it was really open communication about money in the home, and also, I hate to say it, but a little bit of fear that inspired me to start saving early on, because I knew right when I was little that there was not a lot of money, and I didn't want to have that happen to me when I was my parents' age. And I wanted to be able to go to school, and I wanted to buy those bicycles, and I didn't want the same barriers that I saw my parents struggle with. So I basically took it upon myself to start saving my money, and got my first part-time job when I was 14 years old at the Calgary Public Library. And all the while, I was looking for resources, fun ones, to teach me about money management, because the only one that was available at the time was Wealthy Barber, the book, who I actually spoke with David Chilton 2 weeks ago, which was fantastic. Anyways, it was during that time when I was looking for resources to help me understand money that I got the idea to make my own, because there just simply wasn't anything out there that I connected with. The other thing that I noticed was, you know, in high school, to date here, even in Canada, we don't mandate financial literacy as a program curriculum. It's not mandatory anywhere. And we graduate our kids teaching them how to, you know, blow up volcanoes with vinegar and baking soda, but we don't talk to them about debt. We don't talk to them about credit cards. We don't talk about responsibilities with money. And I don't agree with that. I think we should be educating our children. And I also thought at a young age, when I was writing Rich by 30, my first book, like, why on earth should I be the only one in my peer group that knows this information? That's not fair. And so that's where Rich by 30 came from. And by the way, I was told many times that this book wouldn't sell because I was too young, I was just a girl, and money is a tough subject.
Good for you.
Yeah.
But I think that that's an important thing to talk about, because what happens is if you're motivated and you know you are a leader, things do suffer, you make those choices, and you have to have that backup. And if you don't, it crumbles. So can you talk a little bit about him?
My husband is retired now. He retired when we went to Norway, but he was a banker. He actually worked for Scotiabank. We got to him. It was a great company. I'm not sure my husband knew what the hell he was getting into when we married after 10 months and had, by the time we were married 7 years, had 4 kids. And I think it was more like, he's pretty laid back. It was just like, wow. Okay. And so I told him from the very beginning, I said, my grandma told me when I was 12 years old, her advice to me was never be dependent on a man. Now, she probably should have said never be dependent on anybody, but that was something for me that was very important. And I said, this isn't a reflection on you, but this is important to me, that I have independence. And, he never took it personally. Certainly there, when we would go off on, board meeting trips, and he was the spouse, it was very different for him. He quickly, though, liked going off with all the women, and fell into it. Like I said, he's really easygoing. He's a tremendously nice man, and really, his ego doesn't easily get bruised. So I lucked out, really.
Well, I think it's interesting that, when you look at your personal experiences, some girls will say, I love my dad, we're extremely close. He was very busy. We only had moments to speak to, to all the comments that you've made. And yet we still respect them and love them the same. But they didn't put half the time and energy into raising us like our moms did. So I think that that's an interesting perspective to really think about. That we don't have to go to every soccer game, which I was that mom. And so now I'm in a different place where I go, geez, it is a shift. It's a complete shift, and we can't be afraid to follow what we want.
Thank you.
So yeah, I feel like I'm kind of becoming that mom that can't get away from that. So you both of you talked about you don't have that mommy guilt, and you're able to not really focus in or hone in on the fact that you're guilty because you missed this or you missed that. And I want to say that logically, I follow all of that, and logically I can work through that and say, yeah, I don't feel guilty either, because I can put myself up there and say, like, I'm teaching them this or I'm teaching them that. But emotionally or in the heart, I still feel the guilt.
So funny, my sister's a life coach. So this is not me speaking, this is her. She said many times, and I get to hear some of the coaching. I don't know who she speaks to. If you speak to her, don't worry, I don't want to. But she says, guilt is a useless emotion. It does nothing for us. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for us. The emotions that we're feeling are supposed to have, whatever. They're supposed to do something for us. Guilt is useless. So guilt is something, whether it's mommy guilt or guilt because you're late for a meeting or whatever. There's so many different forms of guilt. It's useless. It's something personally that you have to let go. And I have a sister that's a life coach, so it's a lot easier for me to get through that than maybe it is for some others. But it's useless. So. That's all I know. I wish she was here to finish the thought.
I guess any of you ladies could answer this. I really liked your idea about the wheel, your time wheel. I was wondering if in the past, if you had any relationships that were kind of toxic to you, or toxic relationships, or maybe things you were involved in that you enjoyed but you weren't sure how important they were to you, and how you kind of brought those down to make that time wheel more appropriate for you.
I think everybody has had a toxic relationship, or even a commitment where you think, oh, I have to do that again this week. And it feels bad to attend whatever you're attending that doesn't feel good, or spend time with a person that's not contributing. Be discerning with your time wheel. Again, you only have so many slices on that wheel, and in my opinion, a toxic friendship or toxic relationship is not going to contribute to your goals and your dreams. And instead, you might want to think about replacing that relationship with somebody that maybe is a little bit different from you, that helps stretch your thinking and I don't know, challenges you with some new ideas. But at the end of the day, if something feels toxic, it probably is, and you should get your way out of there as quickly as possible. Even something that you feel is not contributing to perhaps a commitment that you have that's not contributing to your career or your relationships, and that maybe feels like a waste of time, just as quickly as possible, get rid of those things.
Hi, this question is for Nancy, and I'm very fortunate to know one of Nancy's daughters. And Nancy has 4 kids, just so you know. One's a CFA, one's a lawyer, one's a vet, and one's a CA. So how on earth do you have your career, a nanny, and 4 kids that have not only done well in school, but have done extremely well in school? How did you find time to get such?
Now I'm going to have to buy you a drink out. Well, thank you, Nancy. Nancy's a lovely young woman. I met her when my daughter was doing a work term in London, England. They were both from the U of A, and Nancy and Kate did it together. I would have to say that you pick your moments about being there. There were times when I came home and I was so bloody tired, there's no question that I just wanted to go to bed. But especially when they were coming into their teens, if I sensed that something was off, I didn't let it go. I followed them to their rooms, I lay on their bed, and I said, you will talk to me, I'm not leaving until you do. So I want to understand what's going on. That was number 1, I'm pretty tenacious. And number 2 is I always talk about education. If I look back at my life, one of the things that I do wish I would have done differently is get a designation. In the oil and gas business, if you're not an engineer, geologist, or geophysicist, and it just makes it that much tougher to get ahead. So, so that was something that I wished I would have done, and so I said to them, education gives you choices. And that's, if you can have choices in life, then I think that you will ultimately find that level of happiness that you're looking for. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you guys so much. Truly inspiring, and I'm sure everyone in this room took at least one thing away from this. I know I took a whole bunch. I'm going to go home and make a time wheel. Does anybody have any more questions? Sure, you can ask a question.
My grandma also used to tell me not to depend on anyone, so of course it makes you fiercely independent. I would love for any of you to touch on maybe some of the relationships that you've had with other women, because I find that most of my relationships end up being with men because of this. So would love to know how you make friends with other women and sort of negate that environment where it's basically male dominant, perhaps.
Okay. Certainly a lot of my friends are male, but I actually far enjoy venting with other women. We had a lot more in common, and I think because that's what I said, most of my friends, or the few friends I had, really, that I had the time for, were my colleagues, for that reason, is that they were having the same experiences, and it's great to share that, and to have a common issues, and help each other through all those challenges. And, I did have a situation where there was a female in my small group that just had kind of gone odd, and one of our group of friends said, well, let's go have dinner with her. And I said, you know what? No, I'm not. My time's too precious, and I'm not wasting 2 hours of my life. But most of the time through my career, women have been a stronghold for me. They've been a rock. They've been a touchstone I can go to. I can have these conversations and feel safe about it. So I do have lots of male friends, but not at that level that I have with women relationships.
Do you think it helps to have women, I'm asking everybody this, does it help to have women that are similar to that, drive and who understand, or for me personally, all of my friends are just as driven. So maybe that's surrounding yourself with women that have the same interests and goals. I don't know.
I would say that for the most part, birds of a feather flock together. So you attract people that are typically interested in similar things. But gender aside, I would think that you know, as we grow as individuals, we would want to surround ourselves with people that are different than us, so that we have diversity in our thoughts and our ideas, and they push us. But hopefully they're compatible with us so that we can enjoy our time with them. But you know, I don't know that I have any comments on the gender-specific friendships. I know though that just so happens in my life that my closest relationships are with young ladies that I grew up with, and we created bonds when we were very young, and they're still the same gals that I hang out with today. But I do have man friends, and they offer a very different perspective. Yeah.
Anybody else have a question?
When did it become fun? When did you figure out that you got it all figured out?
The day it started. From the day the decision was made, it's fun. There's days that I probably would like to take back, but not many.
I have to echo that. I think I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to pursue my passion and make my career out of it. And when you do what you're passionate about, typically success follows. And you know, if you're not focused on the dollars and the highest pay per se, but you're doing what you love, those things kind of take care of themselves. And having fun is part of it, but it's not all fun. Sometimes it's really difficult, but it's that long-term view that ideally you're continuing to do the things that you love to do.
Any more questions? I have a quick question. You guys are so busy. Do you ever feel lazy? Like, what do you do when you feel like, oh, I just don't want to do this, and I don't, whether it's a workout, whether it's work-related, whether it's child-related, what do you tell yourself? How do you find the motivation? Because you three seem so motivated. I want some of it.
I think it's evident that I decide a lot not to do the workout. There were lots of times when I couldn't be lazy, and that's just the way it was, and I just, you know, suck it up, princess, and that's just the way it was. But now, when I can't be, I am. So I knew the day would come, and now all I have is my Molly dog to worry about. I take the time.
I don't know if I should answer this. My idea of lazy is not okay. I actually think I need help in that area. I would love to like put on jogging pants and, you know, just veg out or something, but my brain is hardwired to keep moving. I cannot sit still, and when I do, I'm bored. So I don't be lazy enough.
I don't have that problem. I do take time to be lazy sometimes, but when I have spin class, like I did today, it is helpful to have somebody that goes to spin class with you and sends you emails to make sure that you show up. So I try to hold myself accountable in areas that are important, and you know, like body, mind, and soul, those are all important, including your career. But I think it's really important to take time to eat a bag of popcorn and watch movies and do nothing.
Okay, is there anything else? Any more questions?
Were mentors part of your success, and if so, where did you find your mentors?
For my life, I've had a series of informal and formal mentors, and they have been critical in my path achieving the career success and personal success that I've had. My informal mentors were, you know, as simple as my mom, growing up and having money conversations when a lot of moms in my mom's peer group were not having those conversations. I had more formal mentors, people that trained me in my business and trained me in my career, and those were simply me going out and finding people that were like-minded or had similar business ideas and asking them if they would have coffee with me. And you'll find that that people typically don't turn you down, but later on, it's like karma. You got to return the favor. Make sure that you're making time for coffees with other people. But I did have a very special mentor about 8 years ago, and it was a well-known woman here in Calgary who mentored me in giving, and she mentored me in this whole idea of community involvement and making giving part of your plan, and that you get an ROI, so return on your investment of your time spent. And that was a very unique mentoring experience that lasted for many years, where I learned to integrate my my interest in giving right into my core. So it now shows up in everything that I'm doing, and that was a very unique mentorship opportunity. And now I get the chance to mentor young ladies, which is really cool. And so the tables have kind of turned, and sometimes I scratch my head and wonder what on earth I could possibly tell them, but that's a very special experience when the tables turn.
My mentor, certainly my family is very supportive. I have 5 siblings. They're all successful in their own right. 2 of my brothers are presidents of companies. So I had that, but I was very lucky when I was at Husky for 10 years. I had a mentor. She was 8 years older than me. She wasn't married. She didn't have any kids, but we clicked, and she gave me a tremendous advice, and times when I was struggling to work through some issues, whether it just be meeting deadlines or having issues with managing relationships. She was there for me, and as I said, I'll always be grateful for that. We're still friends, and so I feel as if I benefited from it, and I should be giving back as well, and do.